world of AI art is shifting from basic image generators through to full AI image editing suites. And today we're going to cover Stylar AI, which is an AI editing suite which has a ton of tools and features. I'm going to run through and show you exactly how it works. To access Stylar AI, there is a link in the description as they are sponsoring this video. Now, of course, when you first log into the website, you can get started free by clicking this button here or up here, but I've already got an account, so I'm going to log in and go from there. When you first land, you can start by adding a new project, or you can go down here and explore some of the styles they use for their AI generation, for any of the images or elements you'll be generating. But for now, we're going to get into it and just hit new project. So when you first get in there, there's going to be a little window like this where you can give your project a name, set an aspect ratio. If you click away, it kind of just closes down, but we're going to give it a title. So I've called it Experimentations with Stylar, and I can choose an aspect ratio to work with. I'm going to choose 4:3, so it fills up a lot of the screen while we still have enough space for the UI either side. And you can see we've got dimensions here. I can change that if I want to, but I'm just going to leave that the way it is for now and click apply. And we have our project. Now I can use my mouse wheel to go up and down, or I can use this hand tool here to move things around. And what I can also do is zoom in. So I get 50%. You can also just hold down control and zoom in and out with your mouse wheel. So that's actually pretty handy as well. We can also see how many credits we have up here. So you get 200 credits a week, and we'll basically see how many credits we're using as we go. But first of all, we're just going to start nice and simple by generating an image using text to image. So see here, we've got a very simple little image generator box, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but if I want to choose a style, I have styles here. I can go through and pick certain sort of like categories. I'm going to go to scene design and see if we find something that matches what we're looking for. Retro sci-fi. I might go with retro sci-fi, and I can type in a prompt of something I want to generate. So what we're going to start with is a simple subject. I have a futuristic robot playing in an open field, and of course I can describe the scene a bit further with a comma, bright and sunny, surrounded by nature, and I can change the style intensity here, bring it up or down, and we also have some advanced options. I can give it a negative prompt if there's anything I don't want to see. I'll close that down, and we have our prompt. I click Stylarize. Now you can see we have 4 options to choose from. As we hover over them, we get a nice little preview, which is actually pretty nice compared to what we're used to. But essentially, this is where things start to get a little bit different than usual, is that when we select the image we want, I'm going to go with this last one. I select Place on Canvas, and it places that image on the canvas, and I can resize, edit it, move it around if I want to. But you'll also notice we have some options up here. Some selection options. We can remove objects. So if I click on this remove object, and I just trace over this car on the left over here, and its shadow, I click remove, and it has removed that object. And also with my selection tools here, I can use my lasso tool to select over here, and by clicking subtract, I can now deselect some of that selection. Or with union, I can add to that selection. And of course, instead of the lasso, we can also just choose auto. We'll come to that in a minute. But for now, I can just hit delete, and it will delete that from the image. But I do want to keep that in there, so I'm going to come up the top here to undo. Now again, if we go back to our selection tools and choose auto, I can actually just click on this robot, and it auto selects that robot. And I can duplicate it, and now I have a second robot I can add to the scene. I can resize it, move it around, I can click on it, hit delete. And again, if I go back to my selection tools, choose auto, can remove it from the scene, and it's used AI to remove what was selected. It didn't quite select the feet, but you get the idea. So you got some basic tools with that image straight away, but we can also just straight up remove the background. So if I click on this image and click remove background, we now have our background removed, and I can place that, move it around as I see fit. And as usual, sort of image editing fashion, I can use these handles to resize, or I can grab the sides if I want to actually change the proportion a bit. So I have a few options there. And at any point we can go into text to image. I've got retro sci-fi, but this time I'm just going to say bright and sunny, surrounded by nature. I'm going to change the style to storybook charm and stylarize. You notice I have my other images here. I can always come back to them. And every time we generate, we've been using some of our tokens, but we just got to wait a moment for that next image to generate. And now we can pick an open field to pop our robot into. I really like this one here, but I'm going to place this on the canvas. and we have it on our canvas. Now here's where things do get interesting. With Stylar AI over here, you'll notice we have layers. Much like any image editor, like Photoshop, you really want to be able to control the order of the object. So by dragging this down, I've now been able to pop the background there and sit my robot here above where the shadow is, and he's now in the scene. I can also hit the little eye section here, turn off certain layers, see what it looks like. But now we can actually start to edit our image and go from there. And this is where things start to get interesting. We can generate more over here on the left, but I do want to cover some of these tools quickly, which is we can also add things like text. So I can draw a text box here and give it a bit of text, such as I've got here tech versus nature. So I can select all of this text. So I come here to this little A symbol. I can change it to black or red. I'm going to stick with black so it stands out. And we can then change our font and choose from a variety of fonts here for something we think is going to look pretty good. I'll stick with Passion 1 simply because it's nice and thick, although I don't really like that font. Babas New. And we can change the size, center it. We can even go bold, italics. So now we're starting to get into the realm of editing. And as I resize this, the text gets bigger. So that means I can actually that means I can make it narrower, enlarge it, change the color. And we're starting to get a little bit more advanced, whereas with a lot of the other AI image generators out there, we have to bring this into a separate program. Stylar AI allows us to do this right within their editor. And again, we have it all in layers here. I can right click, I can change the way these are laid out. So I can duplicate this layer, bring it down, give it, say, a year, change the color again, and even resize it into place. So you can see how it's pretty easy to be able to create images and make some basic edits. I can click on this robot here, right click on the layer, flip horizontal, and I have him facing the other way, which is also pretty handy. But I'm going to flip him back and go from there. Another thing too is if I select this layer here, or even the robot, where it says over here, it says layer 1. If I double click on the layer, I can rename it to robot and then use that same double click method for the other layers and rename them all as well. So I can also name the layers and reorder things, and that's the power of this editor already. But let's start working with some more of these AI tools to see what else we can do. I'm going to go down so if I'm going from text to image, I'm going to go to image to image. And you'll notice what this does is it takes what we currently have on the screen and transforms it. So I'm going to go to no style and choose something else. We'll go rubber hose, classic character. And again, I'm going to say a robot in nature. And the structure match means it's going to go nice and close to the image. So I'll bring that up. The style intensity, we do want that to be high as well. And as before, we have our advanced options. I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm going to hit stylerize. And now we have our images, but one thing you're going to notice now is this image has a higher sort of adherence to what we've done. Some of the other ones have less, but the text has changed on some of these images. So what we need to do is actually, if we want to keep the text the way it is, I'm going to actually exit this and I'm going to turn off these two layers. And now we can use this as a basis for an image and then reintroduce the text afterwards. So again, we go to image. This time I'm going to try a different style just to sort of like see what else we can come up with. Let's go Qt3D. I'm going to bring the structure match down a little bit to give Stylar AI a little bit more freedom. Bring that style intensity up. Hit stylerize. And you can see we've got our images again now. Very sort of close, although we don't have the open sky we had in the last image. So I can bring that structure match up a little bit. I'm going to comma because what we put into our prompt really does matter. And I'm going to hit stylerize again. And after a few attempts and adjusting our prompt, we've got something we really like. So I'm going to actually introduce this image onto the canvas. And I think that's really cool. Another thing I want to touch on also is we're going to reintroduce our text layers. We're going to move this layer below, and you can see we now have our text back in the image. I can also grab this brush and I can draw onto a blank canvas, but I'm going to draw onto the current canvas. I can choose my color here, which I'm going to go with, say, yellow. And try and keep it nice and somewhat smooth. And while I'm in brush mode, I can also go to eraser mode and sort of like erase a little bit off that as well. So you can quite easily draw and add bits and pieces to your canvas. And that can be powerful for trying to work on a base image to use for image to image. And don't forget, if you hit done, it creates a layer. I can move that layer down, but here's where it gets interesting. It goes in front of the robot, and I want the robot to go in front of the line. So instead, I can click on my layer. I'm going to right click on my layer 5 over here, and I'm going to duplicate that layer to the top and align it. And now I'm actually going to remove the background, and we've been able to place the robot over the top of that line. So I'm actually going to turn that layer off now, move some items around that are at the top. So maybe I move this down, I move this text down. One tip is it's worth turning layers on and off if they sit over certain objects, so you can actually select them. And now my robot's sitting in front of this text and the line. So that's a nice little effect you can use with this editor as well. But before we move on from image to image, let's try something else. What I'm going to do over here is come over to import images. So I have this image from Pexels of a guy doing like a Kung Fu style pose. I'm going to import that. Keep in mind you can import transparent PNGs and sort of move them around on the canvas. For now, I'm going to cover the whole canvas with him doing this pose. So this means I can actually upload my own images or artwork and do image to image with that. I don't have to generate something to get started. I can just use my own images. I'm going to go over here to image. Now we can try another style, but for now I'm going to keep it the way it is because I want to integrate it into the scene. So I'm going to type in Kung Fu Warrior QD3D, leave these settings the same, hit Stylerize. I'm going to import this character and turn off my original image. So now I have this character here. So I can now come up, remove that background, and I have a character I can now add in the scene. But now I can move on to Generative Fill. What I need to do is actually just mask an area of the image. So I'm going to grab I can choose to auto, so tap auto and actually select something and choose lasso. I'm going to choose brush and just sort of color in an area over here. I click done, and now I enter a prompt, a small retro futuristic robot. I can come back and remark and change this if I want to. And the control method I can use is the prompt, or I can balance between the image and the prompt. So if I want to actually refer to the background image a little bit, I can do that. Or I can refer entirely to the image, but for now I want to focus entirely on the prompt. Although I will go with balance just to see what we get. Hit Stylerize. We can see at the top here, it's added a robot. So I click that, place on canvas, and it has produced a full image. So it's been able to add that in pretty effectively. But there's one thing also down here and here, there's not really any shadow underneath these characters. So I'm going to go back to Generative Fill, go to Image, remove that, and I'm going to grab my brush tool and just brush around the feet. I click Done. I'll say Add Shadow, and I've got Image selected. I click Stylerize. I hover over to find the one I like the best. This one here seems to have the best shadows. Now we've got some nice shadows underneath the feet. So we can use that even just to sort of like blend in some of the current information. And now we basically have this kind of cartoony image. So now if I don't like this text and I want to remove it, I can, because I've been generating so much over here, I can just go to my selection tool, draw a lasso around the text area, hit delete, and it removes it from the layer, revealing what's underneath. So keep in mind though, if I turn this layer off, it does show what's underneath. So you do still need to have some of these layers intact, and I can bring that up behind to really show that. And I can also move the robot right up the top if I want to do that as well. So we've been able to add and subtract things, and we still have our text layers down here if we want to add them in at a later date and move them around. What I recommend doing is actually getting the image the way you want it first and then adding the text after. But for the sake of explaining the tools, I think this works pretty well also. Now, a bit of a sidestep, but I want to show you the face kit. But before we do, what I'm actually going to do is before we do any enhancing, I'm actually going to go back home. And you'll notice my project is here. I can come back to it anytime I want. But for now, I'm going to click on New Project. Now for this project, I'm going to stick with 4 to 3. And hit apply. We're going to go through a few more settings. But you will notice one thing. I've added this segment in later, and there's actually now a new option, which we're also going to touch on that as well. But first of all, we're going to look at Face Kit. I'm going to head up here to import some images. I have this image of a family standing in front of their home. I'm going to click Open. I'm just going to put it into position here, and you can see it's not a bad photo. However, once I enlarge it, you can see we have some issues here with the faces. So what I'm actually going to do is head over to Face Kit. And instead of swap, I'm going to go to repair. I'm going to mark an area, click done, and then I can give it a description. Because I've got a few artifacts here, I'm going to preserve the original face back a little bit and hit Stylerize. And you can see in the preview on the right over here, we get a few options. Like this one here looks the best. Place on canvas. Now her face actually looks like a face. And I can go through and do the exact same thing for the other faces in this image. So you can see they all have actual human looking faces. And if I go back to the original, you can see how bad they were and how far we've come with that face repair option, which is pretty powerful. I'd also like to mention that image was not generated with Stylar AI. It was done with another AI art program. I simply imported it. And you can see I was also able to take this really old Midjourney image here and apply the same process. And this is not a typical face. So this is a pretty difficult thing to fix because of all the elements, and you come up and you can see how it's able to still blend that face in nicely. So it's a pretty powerful feature if it's something that you need with your imagery to sort of fix up a few faces, especially in smaller areas, but also works well in larger areas. But what about the face swap? So I've got another fresh canvas and I'm going to import an image, which I can actually just click and drag, which is also pretty handy. And I've got this image of a guy in front of some surfboards, and I'm going to swap his face with someone else's. I head over to Face Kit, swap, and I need to upload an image. I've got this face here. So now we have a reference face. I hit stylize. Again, I have a few options. So I'm going to choose this one. You can see how we've gone from one face to another pretty effectively. But let's just click that one off for a sec, and we've got our original photo. There's actually another cool little face feature I want to show you before we move on. If I head over here to image, and I say I want to create a vector sticker of a man, I pick a style, so lively stickerism. I can also turn on face match, and what it'll do is actually match that face when it creates that new image. So I'm going to click face match, stylize. You can see how it's been able to maintain the features of the face. So I click on this one, place on canvas. I'm actually going to remove the background, and you can see when I move the sticker next to him, it has maintained his facial features pretty closely. So that's a pretty cool tool, the face match, a great way to change the style of some of your images while maintaining the facial features of the person that you're actually using in the image. But while we're here, let's check out this other new feature, Generative Expand. I'm going to turn off this layer and again come back to our original. I come over and hit Generative Expand and get a cool little menu like this. I can drag this up and out and essentially add to this image. I can describe the content of the image, which is a man standing in front of some surfboards, DSLR photo. I click stylize, and again we have some options. I'm going to go with this one. And again, you can see how we've expanded. Even though he's moved down a little bit, we've expanded that image left and right, and it's even sort of copied some of the pattern of the boards. So it's actually done a really good job of expanding that background so that we can take images and enlarge them, or sort of like enlarge the background behind them pretty effectively with Generative Expand. So now we're going to walk through how to use Enhance. So essentially I've got this image here, which is just a little bit fuzzy. And I want to try and use Enhance to bring it up to resolution. If I zoom in, you can see it's not great resolution. It's made with a different AI art generator. I'm going to head over to Enhance to improve some of those details. Now, Enhance Strength, if I bring it to low, it'll keep it more or less the same and try and smooth out and improve the resolution. High will mean it'll get very creative and change the image more dramatically. I'm going to head to about halfway, and we're going to see what results we get. I'm going to click Enhance. And now this is our result. You can see how it's added a lot of detail into that image, and even added some hair, and it's done a great job of improving what we've done, especially if you look at the quality of the hair. It got some very wispy, low detail. You can see every strand and the detail on the lips, the sunglasses. It has done a great job. Even the trophy, if you look at the trophy bottom right, very highly reflective, even down to detail on the clothing and sort of the bookshelf in the background. So just goes to show you how powerful this feature is if you need to improve the quality of certain images, whether they were made with Stylar AI or not. This one wasn't made with Stylar AI, it was just enhanced with it, but it's a very powerful feature to have a play with. So I tried this out on a second image and again got some pretty impressive results. The detail that has been added is pretty crazy, and it just brings that image to a whole different level. Now keep in mind, at any point you can come in and download these images directly or even place them onto the canvas so you can continue to edit them with Stylar AI. But for now, we're going to actually head on back to our original image we were working on to go through a few more features. So we have our image here. First of all, before I go any further, one thing we can do is also change the style of the image a little bit by going to image, choosing a completely different style, and we can start to work and switch. So I get illustration design, psychedelic illustration, hit auto prompt, and we can use face match if we want to preserve some of these faces. But for this case, for what we're doing here, not really applicable. I'm going to bring the structure match up just a little bit, style intensity up a bit as well, hit stylerize. And this one here, I think looks the closest. I place it on the canvas. And so now we have two different styles, and we can continue to add more styles using the exact same method. American Story. And now I have this cool comic book style that we can add to our image as well. Another element of this is I can turn these off, and at any point I can click export at the top right here, choose my file type, such as a JPEG. Now, if I want to remove this Stylar watermark, I'll go for premium, but for now, I'm going to just leave. I'm not going to worry about upscaling. It's going to hit download, place it there. Now, if I actually go to this layer and turn it on, I can right click and save as an image and save that there as well. And I can actually go through and do the same for each individual layer. But for now, I've turned those layers off, and I'm going to actually upscale that first image and download it so we can check it out. So you can see here we have JPEG selected, but under upscale, I've now selected 2x, which should double the resolution of that file. So we have here our upscale download. It is 3072 by 2304 pixels, so it has upscaled it by 2, and that's a pretty decent resolution image for AI. So that's sort of a bit of a walkthrough of the features and the workflow that you can use with Stylar. The fact that it has the layers and all these tools, it's really like a nice, simple image editor powered heavily by AI. I highly recommend heading back out to your main page, explore some of these styles. If you find something that matches exactly what you're looking for, you can probably save a lot of time and get something very, very direct by simply going through and familiarizing yourself with these styles. It's a pretty powerful platform. And everything I've done today has been on the free tier. So if I head up the top here and head to upgrade, I've used half of my points and I get 200 points a week on the free plan. But if you like it, you can also upgrade, check out some of their paid plans. They're pretty affordable. And also you get access to some of those premium features like the larger upscales and things like that. So really unique AI image editor. I recommend checking it out. There's a link in the description. But otherwise, that's the video for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please consider giving it a like, and hope to see you again next time. Have a great day.